while we're in this atmospheric river and the rain is coming, I want to welcome everybody into the Fantasy Burn. My guest today is Howard Bender. He has a Sirius XM show. He writes for the New York Post. He's with the Better Network, Betor. He has Fantasy Alarm on YouTube with Koopa Fiasco and Britt. And anything else that I'm missing?
No, I think that's it. Fantasy Alarm show on Sirius and the Fantasy Alarm website. That's where you find me. The Fantasy Alarm YouTube page, and
All
yes, the
right.
Post too. I do love the Post.
And on the crawl on the bottom, you can find Howard Bender at Rotobuzz Guy and the Sirius XM Fantasy and at Better Network. So it's great to have you on the show. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you. The Scott Fish Bowl live event has completely changed my life for the better. Things have absolutely taken off. I approached you and said, "Hey, I have these ideas, and I'm gonna like start to do." And then all of a sudden, like over the last 9 months or whatever, everything's like completely changed. My life is in an absolutely new direction, and the Fish Bowl is the biggest part of that. And so I wanted to thank you for being the host because you made everything great, and it Fantasy Cares, Scott Fish, change lives, and that's what it's all about. So
Awesome, man. Thank you.
where are you right now?
Like physically or mentally?
Yeah, physically.
I'm in Half Moon Bay, California, Northern California.
Beautiful.
Um, I've been down here in Half Moon Bay for probably about 6 or 7 years. I've been here on the West Coast since 2007 when my wife and I moved out here. So yeah, that's where I reside now, and we're already in the talks of the next location,
Oh wow.
possibly north.
Okay. Oregon, Washington,
Keep going up,
Vancouver,
a little bit up.
Anchorage.
No, not so far as
No,
Anchorage,
not
but
that far. The Yukon.
no, but yeah, we're looking at the lower eastern area of Alaska, right around the Sitka area. So
Okay. So, having lived in Alaska, people on the peninsula call Western Alaska. They call it fake Alaska or West Canada, the Juneau area,
I'm totally cool. I'm cool with that.
the landlocked part of it. It's funny because I mean there's really like a disdain on the peninsula for people who say they're from Alaska, but it's from that the western side of Canada, the eastern southeastern Alaska. They really just like, oh, that's not part of it. You have to be in the cold, not in the rainforest, and they get real gatekeepery about it.
Well, they'll be okay with me because I'm from New York. That's
Yeah.
where I'm from. I live in Half Moon Bay. I will live in Alaska, but I am from New York through and through. Always have been, always will be. So the Alaskans can be safe in the sense that I'm not from Alaska. I currently live there because I love the area. I could say it that way, and then maybe we'll all just get along and have a good time.
Yeah, it is an amazing place. I loved it up there. So you're from New York. What part of New York did you come
Born and
from?
raised in New York City, actually.
New York City.
Upper East Side, southern part of Spanish Harlem, 106 in Lex area.
Okay. And so that kind of informs your sports fandom interest.
Sort of, kind of. So in New York, it's usually like it's Knicks. The Knicks are your basketball team. Nobody, when I was growing up, the Nets were in New Jersey, and nobody cared about the Nets. Where I'm from, Yankees fans, right? And that's it. But Yankees usually means Giants, and unfortunately, my father grew up in Queens, and the Jets were playing, near there, over on like the Randall's Island area, when they were like the Titans, and then they became the Jets, and so my father was actually he's a Jets fan, so he dragged me down with that. And he was a Yankees fan because his dad was like a Brooklyn Dodgers fan, and he just wanted to piss off his dad. So he became a Yankees fan. So I joined my dad in that sense. And then when my folks moved out to, and I was a Rangers fan as well for hockey.
Okay.
And my folks moved us out to Long Island for like junior high, high school kind of thing. And there was the Islanders in that the Stanley Cup wins, like the four in a row from like 79 through 83 or something like that, was like an absolute nightmare for me.
Yeah.
So I hate all things. I hate the Islanders. I hate the Mets. I love my Yankees. I love my Rangers and my Jets and my Knicks.
It's funny because I have some guests who come from the nether regions of professional sports. Like there's Louisiana, Arkansas. There's nothing. Well, I guess Louisiana's not the same, but Tennessee now too. Anyway, I have people who they don't grow up with a natural professional sports team. I grew up with like an abundance. I had the A's or the Giants, the 49ers or the Raiders, the Warriors, and then eventually the Kings. So there's always those lines that are drawn, and I hate the A's. I'm a Giants fan. I hate them. I hate the 49ers. I'm a Raiders fan. And even though my next door neighbor may have grown up at the exact same time and been a 49ers fan, I grew up and I was a Raiders fan. And it just that's the way it goes. And especially when you get those family ties in it. So Jets hate Giants. Yankees hate Mets. And then one team will totally dominate, and and then they don't hate the other team because they don't care about the other team, and you get those dynamics thrown into the mix too.
I don't. It's like it's funny. I've never encountered Giants fans hating the Jets or Jets fans hating the Giants fans. Like it's never. I've never felt that dynamic. Yankees and Mets fans, yes, absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Rangers and Islanders, 100%. It's weird though, but like I don't know. Maybe it's because we all play in New Jersey that we know that the only real New York football team are the Buffalo Bills. So maybe that's why we don't really hate on each other that much. I'm not really sure, but it's kind of funny. We don't have that dynamic there for the NFL.
That I always thought that there was like an intense hatred between the two groups.
No,
But
my wife's a Giants fan.
okay,
We
yeah,
get along great.
my partner is a 49ers fan. We get along great as long as I don't say anything and I just let her talk her shit. So Long Island, where'd you live in Long Island? I have roots in Greenpoint, uh, right across the sound from New Haven.
Mhm.
My family settled New Haven. They were part of the founding families of New Haven, and then went across into Long Island and started up farms there in the 1700s. Like nobody I know, but still, like as soon as they took it all from the Indians, like we started
Your
farming it.
family was there,
Right.
100%. Kings Park, North Shore, Suffolk County,
Yeah.
is
Okay.
where they moved out to.
Suffolk. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
you know, it was okay.
sounds familiar.
It was
All right. And so you grew up. You were a Jets fan and a Yankees fan, and that was uh, and Knicks too. So Willis Reed, Clyde Frazier, Joe Namath, or am I dating you far too back?
Well, that's like right before me. I mean, I was alive when Clyde Frazier, like, I was born in 1970. So,
Okay,
I was like, I was growing up in that time. I didn't, my real, hardcore fandom, like baseball was always my first love. And I was a huge, huge baseball guy, and I would go to Yankee Stadium as often as I possibly could when I was growing up. Like the like in the movies when you see like the kids scraping together loose change for bleacher seats, like you
yeah.
could do that back in back in the day there. And so that baseball was like it was always my thing, and now I just totally blanked on the question.
No, it's cool because and I apologize. Sometimes I like to say that you're one of the few who are older than me in the industry.
Oh, you're dating me. That's right. Yeah. So Clyde
But
Frazier, guys, but
but
like
we all
Herman
we'll
Munson.
always sorry we'll always have OG Mitch.
We
So
Yes, we will. Um,
Sorry. Okay, so Yankees.
yeah. So I mean, like it just yeah. As far as like that time frame for me, it was like all right. So basketball for me was, um, it was Big East basketball growing up. So it was like when it was like Patrick Ewing and Chris Mullen, like those were the Knicks that I really got into there. Baseball, it was always like the late '70s Yankees. I was like 6, 7, 8 years old when I like really just got passionate about baseball, and just it just meant so much to me. And I
Yeah.
had such a great time just being there at the games when I was a kid. So it was then, and then it was like again, you know growing up, my dad watching Jets games and me just watching Jets games with him. So yeah,
So
and
you were
for the Jets, it wasn't Namath. Namath was just before my time. I was more of the Richard Todd kind of
no, no, no,
era.
no. That we're talking the UC Davis legend Kenny O'Brien era.
I even predate Kenny O'Brien.
I I was at the game where he beat North Dakota State to launch UC Davis into the D2 national championship game. As the team is coming off the field, it's raining. My dad was getting us hot chocolate and everything. He comes walking past my buddy and I and gave us each one of his wristbands. And I don't know where that wristband is, but that was that was 82. I think it was 82. It was right before he got drafted. And it was either, I think that might have been the game that he got hurt, or it was the year before he got hurt in the championship game and they lost. So it had to have been that one. But Ken O'Brien was like, he was my guy. UC Davis, as a Division II non-scholarship school, put out an inexplicable number of NFL prospects. So many guys made it to the league that came out of that school, and they were Division II non-scholarship. It was really really amazing in the 80s. But getting back to baseball, oh well, youth basketball. St. John's, Chris Mullen. Those are some of my earliest memories. Ewing at Georgetown, the Villanova championship, Mullen at St. John's. That's about when I started getting into college basketball. That was mid '80s, I guess.
Yeah. What was it? Yeah, 87 was when Villanova won that. Yeah, and that's when it was. Yeah, it was like right around 87. Right? The
And
infamous frozen envelope at the NBA draft that landed Ewing with the Knicks. Like that was like
yeah,
a yeah, that was like it was right in that time there. It was like those years, because I mean, Bobby Knight at Indiana, Jerry Tarkanian at UNLV, like the 80s were a fun college basketball time.
absolutely. But and Jordan at North Carolina, James Worthy coming out there, Larry Bird. Well, I guess '79 was the Bird magic. Larry Bird was my favorite player. I was a Celtics fan at first. I saw Warriors games on Channel 2 for a while, and then but I liked Larry Bird, and so but I was young, and then the Kings got here, and they became my team. But as far as baseball is concerned, I think it's because it's a more easily accessible game for children, and children are naturally playing it, and it's more parochial, and it was at that time it was a little bit more ubiquitous than college basketball. NFL was just one day of the week or 2 days of the week because of Monday Night Football, so it was harder to kind of like get into baseball. Even as a young kid, like learning to read, you have box scores to read every day. So even in the '70s, as a very small child, I knew who Reggie Jackson was. Knew who a lot of those Yankees were right around the turn of '79, '80. A lot longer, or a lot much further before I knew guys in the NFL or guys in the NBA or whatever. I knew who the baseball players were: Dave Parker, Willie Stargell. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's just easier for little kids to get into baseball. So that's
Well, for us, it was a matter of, I mean, we could play it in the street. Like you can play it on blacktop. If we could play it on blacktop, then it was great. So nobody was playing tackle football in the park. So I mean, it was just like for us, that's you just grab that section of blacktop, play some stick ball, and just kind of work it that way until you start playing more organized baseball. So yeah, it's definitely it was a great time. It was a lot of fun growing up.
So, did you play sports when you were in middle school, high school?
I played soccer, like, out in Long Island. I played soccer over there. I just, what the problem was? The funny thing is that so almost legally blind in this eye,
That's not
right?
funny.
And I'm right-handed, right? And my dad is lefty, but he taught me how to bat right-handed. And so lining up on there, I can't see the pitch coming at me.
Got
And
it.
so I couldn't hit for the life of me. And we kind of couldn't figure out why, but then I was like, I couldn't, I ended up getting hit and didn't like it was coming at me like headwise, and I got hit in the helmet with the pitch. And I mean, whatever. It's not like getting hit with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, but I
Right.
got hit in the helmet. I never ducked. And they were like, you just stood there. You didn't even duck. I was like, I couldn't see the pitch. I didn't see it was coming right at my head. So, it was like that kind of a thing. I was the guy they put behind the plate. I was the catcher. Um, I called a great game. I was defensive. I was sound. I was solid there. Great in the field. Horrendous hitter. Couldn't
And you
hit.
never tried to switch lefty?
I never like it never really occurred to me until it was way too late. And
Yeah.
try being like a 12 or 13-year-old suddenly trying to hit lefty when you've been hitting righty the entire time and
Right.
picking up all your bad habits that way. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty funny that way. So yeah, I definitely uh you know once kids were just throwing the ball harder like that, I was like, I'm done. I can't hit at all. So I stopped playing that. Mom never signed the permission slip for junior high or high school football. So
Football.
I figured soccer, goalkeeper. That's where I was at, and
Me too.
and that's. I also wasn't very fast. Fleet of foot was never a way to describe me.
I played goalkeeper because my dad was the coach and he didn't want to be unfair to the other kids. So he wound up sticking me in goal for 9 years straight. And I became pretty good. And I scored one goal in my entire life in an organized game. And that was one of the happiest moments of my life. And then like quit at 14 because I didn't want to be a goalie anymore. But should we talk about the New York Cosmos?
Giorgio Quinaglia, I would definitely talk about him. He was one of my favorite, right? Ricky Davis, he
Ricky
was another
Davis.
one.
Were you there for Pele?
I mean, I was alive for Pele, but I was never there for Pele. Like
Okay.
I didn't have the appreciation back then.
That stadium was on Long Island, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there's a really really great documentary about the history of the New York Cosmos, and it's it's fantastic the way that they were like signing players like Pele and just like Pele was the first $1 million athlete, and they were just throwing checks at people while the whole league was going under. The Cosmos were just giving people all kinds of money, and it worked. Like people were going to the games, and it was a phenomenon, the New York Cosmos, that like they kept an entire league afloat. And it's a really good film. And if you like soccer in any way, it's everybody should check it out because it's a not very well known piece of American sports history. People easily forget it or don't talk about it, so everybody should look that up.
Well, it's because everybody moved into the MISL, the Major Indoor Soccer League, and
Right,
everybody,
Ricky Davis did too.
right? Everybody abandoned the Cosmos and turned to the New York Arrows, and suddenly Shep Messing was the greatest goalie in
I,
soccer history.
there was a magazine that I got because of being in AYSO that was called Play Soccer, and Ricky Davis was almost every single cover, and because he was the only player that anybody knew about, and there was really no national team to speak of. I mean, it was
Yeah. Oh,
definitely.
I mean, the game of soccer now versus where it was back then. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking late '70s. It was early '80s. it was yeah, nobody was talking about really playing soccer.
So you grow up in New York and you transition into like college. Where'd you go to school? You obviously got into some kind of journalism or writing or like what
All right,
what
so
was your
here you go.
yeah,
You ready? You ready for the you ready for the ride? Here
that's
we
what we're here
go.
for.
All right, so I went away to college. I was supposed to be on a 3-3 program with Columbia Law, go to school, Hamilton College, go there for 3 years, take full course curriculum, graduate. You have like a 3.0 with the extra classes and everything for your first 3 years, you automatic admission into Columbia Law. I never lived away from home. I mean, it was like sleepaway camp was like one summer, but it was very, close to home. And, my parents didn't, we didn't have like money to like travel or go to like, go anywhere like crazy exciting. It was like the one trip to Disney World that I remember. Um, and so like going off to school was like my like, well, shit, now I get to have some fun. I get to
Hmm.
like break out a little bit more and enjoy myself. So I decided I was going to have more fun, and you know what? And I was very much I was doing I started doing stand up for the first time my senior year of high school. I had the acting bug anyway. I always did it, so I ended up dropping out of pre-law, majored in theater, graduated from college, went to New York and took and spent 2 years at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts,
Wow.
and then I tried being an actor in New York. And when you're being an actor in New York, if you're not like hardcore dedicated to it, well, then you end up like me and you end up bartending and partying with all your friends and touring with Fish and having yourself the best old time. And then all of a sudden you realize that, you don't want to be the 40, 50-year-old bartender still at, at the brew pub in the middle of Manhattan. And so, a friend of mine had gotten, we rotating poker game in New York. And all of a sudden from like, dabbled with a little bit of fantasy sports, in like high school with friend's dad played like, handwriting scores
Right.
and stuff like that. So we knew what it was and had some experience there, played around a little bit with it. But then in this rotating poker game, one of the guys' dads was like trying to put together this big league, make it a little bit high stakes, everything like that. And so the whole poker game everybody got into the league. And so that was probably like that was late 90s when the internet started blowing everything up a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so when all of a sudden it was like, you started seeing like the CBS Sports line, and you start reading the articles while you're tracking your fantasy baseball team. And, I was just kind of sitting there and, a couple of championships later and just kind of enjoying, the whole aspect. I was like, you know what? I mean, I was reading everybody's stuff that was out there. And I was like, I'm an educated man, went to a very good school, was supposed to be a freaking lawyer for crying out loud. So I'm not a dummy. And so I just started plodding away, and I started put up a blog on Blogspot, just started sending my links out to everybody, to like, link the blog. Hey, just showed that I was dedicated. I was writing every single day. Started to try and build up my brand a little bit, and then I ended up with like a whole mess of freelance gigs. I was Fangraphs,
Yeah.
RotoWire, couple, those were the first two, and then I ended up I was bartending on the side to just kind of help make the ends meet, and I was bartending out here in San Francisco, over by the ballpark over at Gordon Biersch,
Hmm.
and that was where they had the Fantasy Sports and Trade Associations after party from the conference this one year. So I ended up bartending that party, met everybody, walked out with a stack of business cards about that thick, emailed everybody the next day. And I was working for like 7 8 different websites, fresh content for everybody, stringing it all together so I could cut back on the bar shifts and
Yeah.
kind of work that way. And then that there was one year where the first year that Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio existed, Derek Van Riper from RotoWire used to bring him, Jeff Erickson used to bring me on all the time as a guest to talk Kansas City Royals baseball. Of all teams, I was covering the Royals for RotoWire.
Right.
And that at that point, it was like, Hosper and Moustakis and those guys were all up and coming at
Yeah.
that point. So I was covering them for RotoWire, so they would bring me on the radio, and then from there it was like guest spots over there for like 2 years, like banging down the door of the program director, telling him I can handle a show. He needs to put me on the air. Until I finally just, I wore him down. He gave me Sunday nights, right? Like 10 p.m., 10 to 1. 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern was usually the run for me on Sunday nights. And that's kind of where it all happened. Then I guess it was 8 years ago. I guess I moved to Fantasy Alarm Drive Time Radio,
Okay.
and that's it. There's the story in a nutshell.
And when you were doing the Kansas City Royals stuff, I guarantee you Rob Nyer was listening.
Yes, he might have been. He never reached out to me,
No,
but he might have
he's a hero, and I like Fangraphs. I've been a huge fan of for a long time. I've been reading Fangraphs for over 15 years, listening to their pods when they first started recording podcasts. Analytics Saber is basically like where I kind of cut my teeth and really started getting into deep into fantasy. I always did like the ESPN games and stuff like that, but and then you were telling the poker story, and the dad got everybody into it, and that man's name was OG Mitch.
Yeah, it really was. Timing is everything. How about that?
Yeah. Oh, talk about being in the right place at the right time. Uh, so, a brew pub, second only in California to Sudwork, pumping out pumping out the best garlic fries anybody has ever tasted, and that's what gets you put on the map. Is Gordon Biersch is good. That's good.
Garlic fries.
They,
I still don't understand garlic fries. Like, I don't mind garlic. I really don't.
yeah,
My first Here you go. So my first game ever, I was tending bar at a place over in I guess they call it Cow Hollow, the marina area of San Francisco, and I was tending bar at a place over there when we first moved here, and the manager and I really got along well, and he knew that this was what I was trying to do, and I was working as a writer, huge baseball guy. He was a huge Dodgers fan, so he brought me to Dodgers Giants as my first game out in San Francisco at the old AT&T Park, now Oracle Park.
Candlestick. Oh no, the new one.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, yeah, the new park. Yeah, I was not a candlestick. I wasn't here for candlestick.
so
So
post 2000.
I'm sitting there, and listen, I'm not a small guy, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting there. This dude sits down next to me, and kind of wedges himself in. He's like buttering his hips a little bit to kind of like get him like set in there, and he like settles him in himself in there. Now he's also got with him two huge beers and a ginormous tray of garlic fries. Now I was like, what the is that?
Yeah,
And like I was like, really? That's what people do? They just chow on like these huge chunks of garlic, right? Because I hadn't been, I didn't understand until I started working at Gordon Biersch how much people love their garlic fries out here. But
yeah.
this dude chugging beer, eating all the garlic fries, chugging beer, eating all the garlic fries, and then it's like I don't know, an inning and a half after he finishes it all, that the starts from him. I was like, I turned to Julio. I'm like, Julio, you want to switch seats, dude? You want to switch seats with me? And he's like, what's up? I was like, oh, nothing. Just the view. He's like, what's up? And then he looks over and he's like, oh yeah, no, I don't want to say. Damn, that was my first garlic fry moment here in San Francisco.
They debuted at Candlestick right around like 95, 96, and I remember when they first came out, and it was just like you would wait 3 innings in line to get them. I mean, they were phenomenal. There's something about how crispy they are, and then the oil and garlic and parsley and parmesan that they soak up. Um, they're just they're perfect, and they're so incredibly garlicky that they move past that point where you're like, this is too much garlic. It just becomes this weird thing where it's like the rational mind gets taken over by holy crap, these are good. And yeah, there I have
You met my wife at the Scott Fish Bowl. Do you think that's a woman who's going to tolerate the garlic bread that I could come home with after all of that?
no, there aren't many people on this planet that have that kind of level of tolerance. And I don't know how many games, I can't even count how many games I've sat there, and we're talking an open air stadium. There's a breeze coming off the marina, and I'm going and blowing it up so it doesn't get carried in anybody's face.
Except the person behind you.
Right, because that the indigestion from those garlic fries is that's
Oh,
another level in and of itself. So
brutal.
that's Gordon Biersch garlic fries. They have been around for about 30 years, and they're fantastic, and they won't ever go away. They're just like they're that beloved. It's like San Francisco sourdough, Irish coffee, uh, Dungies out of the Bay, and
Yep.
Gordon Biersch garlic fries. Uh, okay, so now we're getting into like kindred spirit level because we're talking sports, we're talking fantasy stuff, we're talking uh, acting. Write sketch. I do stand up. I
Ah.
act in a sketch troupe. I've done dramatic acting, gone to acting school, write screenplays. So I mean, the parallels just like keep on coming, and we haven't even touched on the good old Grateful Dead.
Ah.
So tell me about when you first heard the Dead.
When I first heard the Dead, I probably didn't appreciate them as much. It was interesting for me because being out on Long Island for those years and my dad so my dad was like folk music guy, right? Like,
Okay,
but he was so Joan Baez, Buffy St. Marie, but he like turned me on to like Jim Croce and some
Cat
some really,
Stevens,
yeah, Cat Stevens was another big one. So Harry Chapin. So like, anything that you hear on Sirius XM The Bridge now.
Dylan.
Right? Well, no, see, that was
No,
the
he
thing.
wasn't
Like
a
my
Dylan
dad
guy.
wasn't he
Okay,
wasn't cool enough for Dylan,
okay, all right.
right? Like there was a limit to it there. So, he was never into it. My parents, very straight-laced people. Very, very straight-laced people. Like in the sense that there was, when I went to my first Dead show, I mean, obviously they like freaked out about I didn't, like about the culture that
Right.
was there. And so, it was like that kind of a thing. So but like so that was my dad. My mom was like the Carpenters and Barry Manilow and John Denver. Like that's what she listened to. So in the car, like they would pick their music and whatever. And so, growing up, like musically, I like, I started rebelling, with the heavy metal just
Hmm.
because it was such the polar opposite. And it was like, it was all Iron Maiden and, Black Sabbath. And then, a lot, very heavy into Ozzy. And then all of a sudden, like, I was 16, my friend's brother took me and him to our first Dead show out in the Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah.
And yeah, it really, I mean, maybe there was a little contact high there and I was just kind of like getting swept up in the moment, but I'll never forget like the first time I heard Jerry sing Althea.
Yeah.
Like blew my mind, like absolutely blew my mind. But the problem for me was that I didn't, you know parents were strict enough that you know I didn't really rebel and say fuck it, I'm going on tour with the Dead. So, and then it was a matter of like, when they were playing and could I get to a show,
Right.
growing up. So then it was like college. That was where it all kind of like, there we go. Okay. Now I can get into the whole,
You found your fellow
world and the
heads.
scene and do my own thing and whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was 16. I knew it was like a part of me, but I just wasn't able to embrace it at that point. Timing is everything. Perhaps, my first experience would have been a totally different one. But I mean, I
Right.
had an amazing time. I just didn't get to like build off of it as much as I wanted to or
Right.
should have.
Yeah. I grew up diving into my parents' record collection, and they were hippies. My dad worked in the city in the mid '60s. They moved out to. My mom grew up in Marin County. They met in San Anselmo in Marin County. My mom used to shop at the natural food store where Huey Lewis used to deliver Nancy's yogurt from Ken Kesey's farm to this natural food store. Um, my dad's cousins, my second cousins, used to like go camping with Jerry and Mountain Girl. So like I have some connections, but my dad's record collection was all Beatles and like and other and actually a lot of San Francisco stuff. Quicksilver Messenger Service,
Mhm.
early Jefferson Airplane, Paul Butterfield Blues Band, like a whole bunch of stuff. And he had Aoxomoxoa. So that was the first record that I pulled that had really incredible art on it that kind of drew me to the like judging the book by its cover. And then Saint Stephen just kind of like started eating its way into my brain. So that was around 8 or 9 years old. And then I started like going out on my own. And similar, I go to the record store for my 10th birthday with a gift certificate, and I got an Iron Maiden record, ACDC Back in Black, two Ozzy records. And in fact, if you bear with me, up here,
There we go.
Diary of a Madman picture disc, Blizzard of Oz picture disc,
So good.
and the Ozzy collection memoirs. So I
Oh.
won these on Facebook. Uh, some record store uh, put out on Facebook. Tell us your best Aussie memory, and you can qualify to win or whatever. So I put, yeah, 10th birthday. Bring these records home, and I remember listening with headphones on in my bed with the lights off, and Mr. Crowley just like creeping the shit out of me. Randy Rhodes is insane.
Oh,
Diary of a
so good.
Madman is one of the greatest songs ever written. It's like it's an orchestral piece, like so good. And then once I got into junior high, I became friends with a guy whose brother-in-law did sound for the Dead. So he was a musician, and his brother-in-law gave him a Mesa Boogie amp that had been played on stage, and so we started listening to the Dead together, and then started going to shows, and like it became a thing after that, and been a huge Deadhead ever since. I had a fish experience coming down from Seattle. We had some capsules, and we're in a VW bus right up in near Humboldt. We pulled over on a turnout on the freeway, put our sleeping bags out, shroom and balls, zipped up in a mummy bag, and the stars were like right here, and we're just like listening to Fish out of this boombox, and that was about '93. It was those were good times. Those were real good times. I never got into Fish the way that you did, or even close to as much as I got into Grateful Dead. I listened to a lot of Trey's stuff with Les Claypool and a lot of the peripheral stuff. But tell me about your first Fish show.
Well, the first time I actually saw Fish was 1989. It was my freshman year of college. Actually, they were playing the college circuit at that point, and they played the Sigma Phi House, and so
Wow.
that was the first time I saw them. Then and I kind of obviously, when you're sitting there, we're trading tapes all over the place, and there are, people that we know from other schools and stuff like that now, because we've all kind of, immersed ourselves into, like a little bit of a community. It was like Hamilton and Hobart and Colgate and, Union and stuff like that. So we were all kind of, in that area, a lot of tape trading, going to some shows, here and there, not doing extensive traveling at all, but, doing what we could. And then I moved back into, New York City in 94, like 94. Yeah, about that. And, yeah, it was 94. Yeah, 95 was when I started working at a place down in Union Square called Heartland Brewery. And that's where I had, like, I met my people. Now I had known I was working at a place in New York when I first moved back from school, and I got a job at a place where my current wife was actually my first boss.
Okay.
She was the manager of this restaurant, and I was working there, and we became friends. We stayed friends, and then, it was weird because I was living like this like weird life at that point. I was like going to school for theater, and I was living with my college girlfriend, and, it was like and she was like at the Stern School of Business and working for J.P. Morgan, and it was like a very weird like transition once I got out of school into New York. But then I left that job, uh, you know, after a couple of years, and she had already moved on. My wife Deborah had already moved on to another place, and then it was, yeah, I think it was like, I got a job at the All Star Cafe, the one that, like, Gretzky and Shaq and those guys all put their money in for. And
Yeah.
I got into an argument with the GM, and on Easter Sunday, and he was pissed about being there in the morning and had to go spend with his family and stuff like that. And he and I, we just like battled. And on Easter Sunday, we just, I was like, whatever. And he was like, get the fuck out. And I was like, I was already gone. Don't worry about that. But
You
then,
can't fire me.
like,
I quit.
well, I get out of there, and I'm like, well, shit, now I definitely need a job. I definitely need a job. And I was like, who do I know in this industry that is definitely working on Easter Sunday? And so I called Heartland Brewery, where I knew that Deborah was, that she was working, and I was like, "You hiring?" She's like, "You asking?" I said, "I'm asking if you're hiring." She's like, "Get on down here." So I ended up there, and then it was that group of people there who were working there, but like she was controlling all of the music as well. So it was all Fish, Dead, Mo, God Street Wine, um, and that's all she played at the brewery. And like, so all of a sudden, like, all the jam band people from New York kind of knew that Heartland Brewery down in Union Square was very jam band friendly. And so like that group of people and the group off of there, that's what brought our poker game together. And like they had already playing at that point, and I got hired there and started playing cards with them. So
Right.
I guess I can owe all of my current fish friends and poker buddies, all to my wife for hiring me once again on Easter Sunday that day. And then like that was like the group where we just toured.
You can
We
go
just
back further than
toured.
that.
We did all
Just
the
say
festivals.
thank you, Wayne Gretzky.
Dude, I worked security for Wayne Gretzky on opening night. That was amazing, actually, because I was a huge, huge, huge hockey guy,
Yeah.
huge into the Rangers, and so I got there, and they were like, well, we're not going to have you behind the bar. We're going to have you work security, and I was like, excuse me. And they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. You go, you're going to follow, you're going to shadow Wayne Gretzky all night. You're going to stand at his table. He said, kids can have all the autographs they want, adults do not. He's like, so you're going to keep away all the adults. I was like, I'm going to fucking hang out with Wayne Gretzky all night. He's like, yes. I was like, done and done. And so
Yeah.
I hung out with Greg. Gretzky was there. Janet Jones was with him the entire time. Marty McSorley, Pat
Ooh.
Conacher. These guys were all there. And then the Rangers finished playing. And then all the old Edmonton guys, Messier,
Yes. Yeah.
Kevin
Yeah.
Lowe, all these guys all came and they all just drank all night long. And they were like closing everything down, and the public was already out of there. And these guys were like, they were so friggin' cool. They were like, have a beer with us. Oh, okay, sure. I did a shot with Wayne Gretzky and Charlie Sheen.
That's that's
and I
phenomenal.
and it was so hard for me because I don't drink tequila, and like keeping it down was like the worst, because there I was like with the two of them. They made me do a tequila shot with them, and then I was like,
Blow it up.
oh, it was crazy. No, I was like I was just fighting back the vomit. You do
Yeah.
one of the. All right, I'm good now. Thanks,
Been there.
guys.
Taste it twice.
Dude, it was crazy. It's so funny. I kind of think about it. Like all that time in New York, it was nuts. Like the people that I met, people I spoke to, hung out with. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. I bought weed from the same dude as that Dave Chappelle did, and hung out with Dave Chappelle. I mean, it was like bizarre. Like
That's
I definitely have led a very, very strange, long, strange trip. The
long,
ultimate
strange
long,
trip.
strange trip. I'll say that.
Yeah. That and it's still going. Uh, yeah, Gretzky. I have talked to my partner in pods, FF Canuck 99 after Gretzky. I remember folding newspapers the day that he got traded to the Kings. And then it was 94, 95 preseason. They played in Sacramento against the Sharks. Sharks jersey in the back, and got to go to that game. I had just burned my face at work. The one day I decided to go to work stoned, I spilled molten melted sugar on my face, and I was high enough that everything was in slow motion, and I could think. I got to get hot water on this stuff to get it off, because if I put cold water on my face, it's going to like harden the sugar. So I go straight to the sink, and I mean, like seriously, like 600-degree melted sugar. Had a big huge like second-degree burn all over the side of my face. Walk into Arco Arena to go watch the game, 15,000 people there, and in my head I'm like, they're all looking at my face. And once I once I got through that, I was like, well, shit, if I can get through that, I can get through anything. so so self-consciousness kind of like went by the wayside at that point. um, so all right, so many parallels. We're gonna have to do this again, and we'll probably be at the Fishbowl 14 or at the Expo. See you in August. We're gonna finish up. What's for dinner, by the way? What
Oh,
is Deborah?
it's taco night at the
Okay,
Bender Jackman residence. I'm super excited about that.
so I got this recipe from my dad. I shared it with Bo today.
Oh, okay.
It's enchiladas,
Uh huh.
but you make them with a box of frozen taquitos.
Ooh.
I've never done it before, so I just did it tonight for the first time. I put them in the oven before we started, and they'll be waiting. But enchilada sauce over the top, cheese, and made them with taquitos, so I didn't have to go through the dip in the tortillas and rolling them up and all that stuff. Just pre-made, put them in the casserole dish, enchilada sauce and cheese, and I can't wait to see how they come out.
So the full parallels here, from sports to music to food and everything like that, and we get to culminate it all with the fact that, not even planned, we're both doing Mexican tonight.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do live in North Mexico, so there you go. All right, so I finish up everything with a top five power rankings. So we're gonna get your ranking from 5 to 1. I give everybody the option of coming up with their own power rankings. So if you can think of something that you want to rank 5 to 1, you can do that. It can be fish songs. It can be the best shows that you've been to. It can be like bands in general. It could be
Ooh.
jam bands, as long as you don't include spin doctors. Or we can spin the random wheel.
Ah, pour one out for the
or,
spin doctor.
or I'll take John Popper every day of the week over the spin doctors. Not that the spin doctors were bad; they were good. They just got too big for. They got a little too commercial. Or we can spin the randomizer and see where you come up on the wheel.
Oh, ooh. I mean, I feel like the randomizer is probably the best spot to go here for like a little on the spot kind of thing. Let's see what we
On
can
the
do.
spot. Alrighty. Oh, hamburgers. All right, so we're gonna go with Howard Bender's 5-1 top 5 burgers that he's ever had in his entire longer than mine life, but not as long as OG Mitch. Um,
Nobody's as long as OG Mitch. Top 5 burgers I've had. All right. You know what? I'm gonna go. Ever might gonna hate this one, but the Big Mac.
okay,
The Big Mac is an absolute classic.
nobody hates
Um,
that.
so I'm gonna go with that at number 5.
I think the Big Mac, because it's at McDonald's, gets short shrift. But if you kind of think back, especially for a certain generation, the Big Mac was the first uh, milestone burger for us. It was the first like destination burger because I would go with my grandpa and we would always get like a regular cheeseburger or whatever, and it was always the Big Mac that I looked at and I was like, someday I'll be ready for that. Right. And so then you have your first one and it's like suddenly there's special sauce and you get lettuce and there's a third bun. And I mean, it's an iconic American classic. There's nothing wrong with it. Do I eat them now? No, because there's a couple things that are better. But iconic number 5 is perfect.
All right. Well, then good. Then everybody can hate on number 4 because number 4 is more of a volume play than anything else. But what's better than 2:30 in the morning? I'm drunk as shit, sitting in a White Castle parking lot.
Oh,
So I'm going with a White
yeah.
Castle at number 4.
Now in 20, well, it was 2022. My buddy and I go out to Chicago. Cal was playing at Notre Dame. I got to watch Michael Mayer score a touchdown against my guys, and we went to Wrigley on Friday. Went to the Notre Dame game. Got an Uber from Joliet to South Bend. So that was pretty expensive, but but then Sunday we were like, okay, what do we want to do? We had plans to go into the city, but we were so blasted, just so tired from the last 3 days of like traveling and all that stuff. We were like, let's just stay home and or stay in the Airbnb, order White Castle and watch football. And I think we DoorDashed White Castle, and for the two of us, it was $80, and we crushed it. Absolutely destroyed $80 worth of White Castle. I don't have a White Castle here,
They
so
sell them by the suitcase, man.
oh
Come
my god, a
on.
20 pack like or two 10 packs, whatever
So
it is,
good.
just to the face.
So good.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
So number 3.
Number 3 is going to be there was a place in New York. There was one on the east side, Upper East Side. They also then opened up one on the west side as well. And it was called Jackson Hole, Wyoming, was the name of the place. And it was every burger was phenomenal. Every burger was like, it was like the meat was like this thick and everything was just it was just dripping off of it. And I'll eat, I'll put a million one different things onto a burger. So, but like style wise, that was just so good. So
Yeah.
good.
Big as
Um,
your face.
number two. Number 2 is the Corner Bistro down in Lower Manhattan as well, right over by Greenwich Village area. It was just your basic burger. It was a good. It was always a good quality burger, like good thick patty. They put it together just so good. There was like a mayo sauce that they put in. It wasn't like an aioli, but it was a mayo based sauce that they had that was just it had like a little bit of a tang to it, not quite like a Big Mac tang, but like just different. Corner Bistro, just a good old fashioned quality burger. And then the number one
Wait, I
was
got
one
a
of
I
my
got a
abs.
drum roll. I got a drum roll. All right. So, Howard Bender's number 1 burger of all time, and I can't even hear it. But go.
There was a diner over on 96th and Broadway called the Happy Burger, and they did a patty melt burger that was ridiculous. So it was like a thick cut rye bread,
Mm-hmm.
right, with the burger on it, and the first like cheese on the bread, burger, cheese, onions, like grilled onions, burger,
Oh,
and then more cheese on top of that, and then there was and then they ran like just a little bit of a blue cheese crumble, like
whoa.
on that. And it's not for everybody, but it's for me. And you put it with bacon, and so it was like a mix of cheese. It was like, I mean, I don't want to say it was like a white American. Maybe it was like a very white. It was a white cheddar, but not like a sharp cheddar. So like you caught the blue cheese. It didn't clash with the blue cheese,
Right.
right? And just on another thick cut piece of rock, so good.
Now, all of these East Coast places, and talking about rye bread, maybe I should have thrown delis in there. But if I have a way to choose, if like I want a burger, um, and I can choose like how I want it like put together, I'm gonna go patty melt style. Grilled rye bread. There are gatekeepers that say it has to be Swiss and Thousand Island. There are some people like me who say ketchup and American. Um, and the grilled onions. It's how I got into grilled onions and love grilled onions is because of my first diner patty melts. But patty melt is the way. Like I like a burger on a bun, blah blah blah. But on
Sure.
grilled rye bread, I don't think that there's any better way to have a burger. So lockstep with the patty melt. And now that you are sufficiently hungry,
Gonna go
I'm
have me
gonna
some
let you get.
tacos.
I'm gonna go let you get to your tacos, your Wednesday taco night. Thank you so much for coming on with me, Howard. I really, really appreciate it. I look forward to like seeing you in the future again. I will reiterate what I told you at the fishbowl. If you ever need a guest, feel free to send me a DM. I'd love to talk bullshit analysis, whatever have you. I can go deep on baseball. Whatever you want to do, I would love to be a part of whatever you're doing, and I will talk to you in the future. And the rest of you, I hope you win.